The massive bioship moved through space like a living nightmare. Its hull was made of bone and flesh that had grown over thousands of years. Dark veins pulsed with green light along its sides. Sharp spines jutted out from every surface. This was not a machine built by hands. This was a creature bred for war. Commander Deho stood on the bridge of the hunting vessel. His 9-foot frame was covered in thick scales that could stop laser fire. His claws were longer than human fingers and sharp enough to cut through steel. His yellow eyes glowed in the dim light as he watched the star maps floating before him. "Commander," said Lieutenant Minho, approaching with heavy steps. "The scouts have found something." Deho turned his massive head toward his second in command. Minho was smaller than most Kethfer, but twice as vicious. His scales were darker, almost black, and covered in scars from countless battles. He had killed more species than most commanders had even seen. "Show me," Deho growled. His voice was deep and harsh, like rocks grinding together. The star map changed to show a small system near the edge of known space. A yellow star sat in the center with several planets orbiting around it. The third planet from the star glowed blue and white. "Waterworld," Minho said with disgust. "Weak species always need water." Deho studied the readings. The planet had oceans and continents. It had an atmosphere that could support life. Most importantly, it had cities. Cities meant a species that had learned to build. Building species were always the most fun to hunt. "How many?" Deho asked. "Billions," Minho replied. "They call themselves humans. They are new to space travel. Very primitive. Their weapons are crude. Their bodies are soft." Deho's lips pulled back to show rows of razor-sharp teeth. This was what passed for a smile among the Kethfer. Perfect.
Ow!
The bridge crew worked. At their stations, each station was grown from living tissue that responded to touch. The Kethfer had learned long ago that machines could break. Living systems could heal and adapt. Their entire civilization was built on this principle. Sergeant Jiwan entered the bridge. She was older than the others, and her body showed it. Deep scars ran across her face and arms. One of her eyes was missing, replaced by a biomechanical implant that glowed red in the darkness. She had survived more battles than any warrior in the fleet. "The hunting packs are ready," she reported. "All bioships are at full strength. The creatures are hungry." Deho nodded. The Kethfer fleet was not just ships and weapons. It was a living ecosystem of predators. Each vessel carried thousands of smaller creatures bred for different types of warfare. Some were fast and could tear through armor. Others were large and could crush buildings. All of them lived for one purpose: to consume other species. "Tell me about this species," Deho said as he walked to the viewing screen. "What makes them think they can exist in our galaxy?" Minho activated the display. Images of humans appeared. On the screen, they were small, barely half the height of a Kethfer. Their skin was thin and looked easily damaged. They had no claws, no natural armor, no fangs. They looked like prey animals. "They are weak," Minho said. "They need tools to fight. Oh, they need machines to travel between stars. They cannot even survive in their own atmosphere without protection when they leave their world." "Pathetic," Guan added. "They will not last an hour once we arrive." But Deho was studying the images more carefully. Something about these humans was different. Most species they encountered had evolved some form of natural weapon. Claws, teeth, poison, thick skin, something that showed they had learned to fight for survival. These humans had nothing. "How did they survive long enough to reach space?" he asked. Minho shrugged. "Luck, perhaps. Or maybe their world has no real predators." "Every world has predators," Deho said slowly. "That is the first law of evolution. The strong eat the weak adapt or die. These humans must have adapted somehow." He continued to study the images. The humans lived in large groups. Their cities were massive, housing millions of individuals. Most species built small settlements that could be easily defended. These humans seemed to build as large as possible. "They are herd animals," Juan said. "They cluster together for protection. It will make our job easier. More prey in one place." Deho was not convinced. In his 800 years of life, he had seen the rise and fall of countless species. The Kethfer had been expanding across the galaxy for over 3,000 years. They had encountered every type of life form imaginable. Some fought back with advanced weapons, others tried to hide, few even tried to negotiate. All of them had failed. The Kethfer were evolution's perfect answer to the question of survival. They were stronger, faster, and more intelligent than any species they had met. They had no weaknesses. They felt no emotions that could be used against them. They knew only hunger and the desire to grow stronger. "How many ships do we need?" Minho asked. "All of them," Deho replied. "I want this to be quick. The humans will serve as food for our creatures and practice for our younger warriors." The fleet began to move. 47 bioships of various sizes turned toward the human system. The smallest vessels were still larger than anything the humans had built. The largest was the size of a small moon. Each ship was alive, breathing, growing stronger with every passing moment. Inside the ships, millions of creatures stirred. They could sense that hunting time was coming. Some were the size of dogs, but moved faster than any land animal. Others were as large as buildings and could bite through the strongest metals. All of them had been bred for one purpose: to kill. Deho walked through the corridors of his ship. The walls pulsed with life around him. Biolights provided dim illumination. The air was thick and warm, perfect for Kethfer lungs. This was home. This was perfection. He entered the breeding chambers where the smaller creatures were kept. Thousands of them moved in the darkness, their eyes glowing with hunger. They knew what was coming. They had been bred for this moment. "Soon," he whispered, "to them, soon you will feast." The journey to the human system would take several days. Deho used this time to study everything the scouts had learned about the humans. Their technology was primitive but showed potential. Their cities were well organized. Their population was large and spread across most of their world. What puzzled him most was their behavior. The scout reports showed humans doing things that made no sense from a survival perspective. They cared for individuals who could not contribute to the group. They spent resources on activities that had no practical purpose. They seemed to value things that had nothing to do with becoming stronger. "They are truly weak," Minho said, when Deho shared his observations. "This will be easier than we thought." But Deho was not so sure. Every species had adapted to survive somehow. The humans had reached space travel, which meant they had overcome countless challenges. There had to be something about them that allowed them to succeed. He would find out soon enough. The bioships moved through space like a school of predatory fish. They left behind a trail of destruction as they consumed asteroids and small planetoids to feed their growth. By the time they reached the human system, they would be at peak strength. Deho stood on his bridge and watched the stars. Soon, he would add another species to the long list of those consumed by the Kethfer. The humans would become nothing. More than a memory, their worlds stripped bare, their achievements forgotten. This was the way of evolution. The strong survived. The weak were consumed. It had always been this way. It would always be this way, or so he thought. The colony ship knew. Sol moved slowly through space toward its destination. Inside its metal hull, 50,000 humans lived and worked in preparation for their new home. The ship was massive by human standards, but it was still tiny compared to the Kethfer bioships that were now approaching their system. Captain Soman stood in the command center, watching the readings on her screens. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, with short black hair and calm dark eyes. She had served in the Earth Defense Force for 20 years before accepting command of this colony mission. She knew how to make hard decisions under pressure. "Psst," said Dr. Kumsu from his station. "I am detecting unusual energy signatures on the edge of our sensors." Salman walked over to look at his readings. Dr. Kumsu was the ship's chief science officer, a thin man with thick glasses who seemed to find everything in the universe fascinating. He had been studying the data for several minutes, his face showing growing excitement. "What kind of energy signatures?" Salman asked. "Nothing like our technology," Kungsu replied. "The patterns are organic, almost like they are alive. But that It should be impossible for objects this large. Engineer Hedgen looked up from her control panel. She was responsible for keeping the ship's systems running smoothly. Her hands were always dirty from working with machinery, and she preferred fixing things to talking about them. Could be a new type of alien technology, she said. We always knew we might encounter other species once we left Earth. Salmon nodded. Humanity had been alone in the universe for as long as they had existed. But logic suggested that other intelligent life must exist somewhere among the billions of stars. The colony mission was partly an attempt to find new worlds and partly a search for other forms of life. How many objects are we detecting? Salmon asked. Kyung-soo checked his instruments. 47 separate contacts. They are large, Captain. Much larger than our ship. And they are moving in formation. A fleet, Salmon said quietly. That means intelligence. Organization. The bridge crew worked at their stations, trying to gather more information. The objects were still far away, but they were approaching at high speed. Whatever they were, they would reach the new Sol within hours. Should we prepare defensive systems? Asked Lieutenant Dongwon, the ship's security chief. Soman considered this. The new Sol was not a military vessel. It carried some defensive weapons, but they were designed to deal with asteroids and space debris, not hostile aliens. If these newcomers wanted to fight, the colony ship would not survive long. Not yet, she decided. We do not know their intentions. Powering weapons might be seen as aggressive, Captain Kung-soo said, his voice filled with wonder. I am getting clearer readings now. These ships, ... They are definitely organic. They have circulatory systems, neural networks, even what looks like digestive organs. They are living creatures modified for space travel. Hedgen whistled softly. That is incredible. A level of biotechnology required to create something like that. It means they are far more advanced than us, Salmon said. We need to be very careful about how we approach this. The hours passed slowly as the alien fleet drew closer. The humans used every sensor and scanner they had to learn about their visitors. The more they discovered, the more amazing it became. The ships were not just alive, they were complex ecosystems. Each one carried thousands of smaller life forms. Captain, said Communications Officer Wanho, we are receiving a signal. Put it through, Soman ordered. The main screen activated, showing the bridge of one of the alien ships. The humans got their first look at a Kethfer, and several crew members gasped in shock. Commander Daeho filled the screen, his massive frame covered in thick scales, his claws visible as he gripped the sides of his command chair. Small creatures, Daeho said, his voice translated by the ship's computer. You travel far from your world? This is unusual for such a weak species. Soman stepped forward. Despite the alien's intimidating appearance, she kept her voice calm and professional. I am Captain Soman of the colony ship New Sol. We come in peace, seeking to establish a new home for our people. Daeho's yellow eyes studied her through. The screen? You are very small. Your ship is crude. Your weapons are primitive. How do you expect to survive in a galaxy full of predators? We have survived on our world for thousands of years, Soman replied. We have learned to adapt and overcome challenges. Your world has no real predators, Daeho said with what might have been amusement. You have never faced creatures like us. We are the Kethfer. We have conquered this galaxy for 3,000 years. Every species we have encountered has fallen. Before us, Dr. Kung-soo couldn't help himself. Fascinating. How did you develop such advanced biotechnology? The complexity of your ship suggests a completely different evolutionary path from our own. Daeho seemed taken aback by the question. Most species begged for mercy or tried to negotiate when faced with the Kethfer fleet. This human was asking about their technology as if they were having a friendly conversation. Your science officer is strange, Daeho observed. Does he not understand that you are about to die? We understand the danger, Salmon said. But we also understand that this is the first contact between our species. Dr. Kung-soo is simply curious about your achievements. Curious, Daeho repeated the word slowly. You face extinction, and you are curious. Lieutenant Minho appeared on the screen beside his commander. "They are either very brave or very stupid," he said to Deho. "Either way, they will taste the same." Hedgen leaned forward. "Those bioships must require incredible amounts of energy to maintain. How do you feed them during long journeys?" "They consume whatever we encounter," Minho replied. "Asteroids, planets, other ships, they are always hungry." "That is remarkably efficient," Hedgen said, with genuine admiration. "Our ships require constant resupply of fuel and materials. A self-sustaining biological system would solve many problems." The Kethver commanders exchanged glances. This was not how their conversations with prey species usually went. Most aliens spent their time pleading or threatening. These humans seemed more interested in learning than in dying. "You ask many questions," Deho said, "but you do not ask the most important one." "What is that?" Salman asked. "You do not ask us to spare your lives?" Salman considered this. Would asking make a difference? No, Deho admitted. "We have never spared a species before." "But they always ask, then why waste time with pointless begging?" Salman said. "If we are going to die, we might as well learn something interesting first." Kung Su nodded eagerly. "Could you tell us about your evolutionary history? How did you develop such perfect integration between biological and technological systems?" Stared at the human scientist. In 800 years of conquest, no prey species had ever asked him to explain Kethver's achievements. They were usually too busy screaming or firing weapons to engage in academic discussion. "You are the strangest creatures we have encountered," he said finally. "We get that a lot." Salman replied with a small smile. "Humans have always been curious about the universe around us. It is one of our defining characteristics." "Curiosity is a weakness," Minho said. "It makes you vulnerable, does it?" Hedgen asked. "Curiosity led us to develop space travel, brought us to the stars. It has allowed us to survive and thrive for millennia." "You have not thrived," Deho said. "You are still confined to one star system. You have no weapons worth fearing, have no natural defenses." "But we are here," Salman pointed out. "We have traveled between stars. We have built ships and cities and societies. We have art and music and literature. We have created beauty in the universe." "Beauty is meaningless," Minho said. "Only strength matters." "Is it meaningless?" Kung Su asked. "You have created beautiful ships. The integration of form and function in your biovessels is elegant. Surely that represents a form of beauty." Deho found himself looking at his own ship with new eyes. Had never considered whether it was beautiful, it was functional, efficient, deadly. But the human was right. There was something graceful about the way the living systems worked together. "We did not design them for beauty," he said. "But beauty emerged anyway," Kung Su said. "That suggests that beauty and function are not opposites. They can work together." Conversation continued for over an hour. The Kethber commanders found themselves answering questions about their society, their technology, their history. The humans listened with genuine interest, asking follow-up questions and making observations that showed they were really thinking about the answers. It was the strangest first contact in Kethver history, and for the first time in their existence, the hunters found themselves hesitating before the kill. Commander Deho made a decision that surprised even himself. Instead of destroying the human ship immediately, he chose to board it. In 3,000 years of Kethver expansion, no commander had ever bothered to visit a prey species before killing them. But these humans were different somehow, and he needed to understand why. "Prepare the boarding pods," he ordered Lieutenant Minho. "We will examine these creatures more closely." Minho looked confused. "Commander, why delay? Could destroy them now and move on to their homeworld." "Because something is wrong," Deho replied. "These humans do not behave like prey. I want to know why before we consume them." The biopods launched from the Kethver ship, carrying a small strike team toward the new Sol. Each pod was a living creature, bred specifically for boarding actions. They attached themselves to the human ship's hull and began cutting through. With acid secretions, Captain Soman watched the alien pods approach on her screens. "They are coming aboard," she told her crew. Remember, we are dealing with a species that has never encountered peaceful contact before. Stay calm and follow my lead. The pods broke through the hull and the Kethfer warriors entered the ship. Deho had to duck to fit through the human corridors. Everything about the ship seemed impossibly small and fragile. The walls were thin metal that his claws could easily tear through. The humans who met them were even smaller than they had appeared on the communication screen. But they were not running. They were not screaming. They stood quietly, watching the massive alien predators with the same curiosity they had shown during the communication. "Welcome aboard the new soul," Captain Soman said, bowing slightly. "I am sorry the corridors are not designed for beings of your size." Deho stared at her. An apology for inconvenience from a creature about to die. "Never heard anything like it." "Show us your ship," he commanded. Salman nodded and began walking down the corridor. The Kethfer warriors followed, their claws clicking on the metal floor. Gas! Lieutenant Minho stayed close to Deho, his eyes constantly scanning for threats that never appeared. The first thing that struck Deho was how the humans lived. The corridors were lined with images, pictures of landscapes, artwork, photographs of people. None of these had any tactical value. They served no purpose except to make the space more pleasant. "What are these for?" he asked, pointing at a painting of a sunset. "Beauty," Soman replied. "Humans need beauty in their lives. It makes long journeys more bearable." "Beauty does not help you survive," Minho said. "Does it not?" Salman asked. "Beauty gives us hope. Hope helps us endure hardship. Endurance helps us survive." They entered a large common area where hundreds of humans were gathered. Deho expected panic when the aliens appeared. Instead, the humans watched with interest. Some of them were taking notes. Others were making sketches. A few were even smiling. "Are they not afraid?" Minho whispered to Deho. "Think they are." Deho replied. "But they are curious about us too." A small human approached them. She was very young, maybe 8 years old by human standards. She had long black hair and bright eyes that showed no fear. She was carrying a piece of paper. "Hello," she said to Deho. "I am Yunji. I drew a picture of your ship. Would you like to see it?" Deho looked down at the child. She was smaller than his hand. One casual swipe of his claws would kill her instantly. But she stood there holding up her drawing, waiting for his response. Lieutenant Minho stepped forward. "Move away, small creature. We're not here to look at pictures." But Yunji ignored him and kept looking at Deho. "It is a very pretty ship," she said. "Is it alive? Does it have feelings?" Deho took the paper from her small hands. The drawing showed his bioship, but not as he had ever seen it. She had drawn it with colors that made it look graceful and beautiful. She had added small details that showed she had been watching very carefully. "It is alive," he said quietly. "Odd. But it does. Not have feelings the way you do. That is sad," Youngji said. "Everything should have feelings. Feelings make life more interesting." Minho reached toward the child, but Deho stopped him with a gesture. Something about this small human was affecting him in a way he could not understand. She saw beauty in a ship of war. She felt sadness for a creature she had never met. "Is your purpose on this ship?" Deho asked her. "I'm going to be a teacher," Yunji said proudly. "I will teach other children about the stars and planets. Maybe someday I will teach them about your people too." "Our people are warriors," Minho said. "We conquer and consume other species." "What would you teach about that?" Yunji thought about. "This seriously. I would teach that you are very strong and very smart. You have built amazing ships and traveled across the galaxy, but maybe you could use your strength to help people instead of hurting them." Deho felt something crack inside. His mind. This child was suggesting that the Kethfer could change their fundamental nature. It was impossible. They were predators. It was what they were born to be, but the idea would not leave his thoughts. Captain Soman led them to the medical bay, where Dr. Yuna was treating injured crew members. Some had been hurt during the boarding action when the pods cut through the hull. Others were suffering from various illnesses and injuries. What amazed Deho was that Dr. Yuna was treating everyone equally. She spent as much time caring for an elderly man with a broken leg as she did for a young engineer with a serious wound. When the Kethver entered, she looked up briefly, then returned to her work. "Do you not fear us?" Minho asked her. "I'm afraid," Dr. Yuna admitted, "but these people need medical care. Fear cannot stop me from helping them." "The old man is useless," Minho observed. "He cannot work. He cannot fight. Why do you waste resources on him?" Dr. Yuna looked at Minho with surprise. "He is not useless. He is a person, his family who love him. He has knowledge and experience. He has stories to tell." "Stories do not help a species survive," Minho said. "Stories teach us who we are," Dr. Yuna replied. "They help us remember what we are fighting for." Daeho watched as she gently helped the old man sit up. The human was weak and frail, but she treated him with the same respect she would show a warrior. Among the Kethver, the weak were consumed so that the strong could grow stronger. It was the way of evolution. But these humans had evolved differently. They protected their weak. They valued individuals who could not contribute to survival. They spent resources on beauty and art and stories, and somehow they had still managed to reach the stars. Engineer Hedgen found them in the medical bay. "Captain," she said to Soman, "we have a problem with the main drive. I need to shut it down for repairs," Soman said without hesitation. Minho looked confused. "You will make yourself helpless. We could destroy you easily if your engines are not working." "Yes," Salman agreed. "But the drive needs to be fixed. Our safety is less important than the safety of the 50,000 people on this ship." Edgin nodded and hurried away. Daeho followed her, curious about human technology. What he found in the engine room amazed him. The fusion reactors were primitive compared to Kethver biosystems, but they were elegant in their simplicity. "These are dangerous to work on," he observed, watching Hedgen prepare for repairs. "Very dangerous," she agreed. "But they need to be fixed." "Send someone else," Minho suggested. "Why risk yourself?" Hedgen looked at him as if he had asked a strange question. "Because I am the best engineer on the ship. If something goes wrong, I have the best chance of fixing it quickly. The risk to me is less important than the risk to everyone else." She began working on the reactor core, her small hands moving carefully among components that could kill her if she made a mistake. Daeho found himself holding his breath as she worked, though he could not explain why. The repairs took hours. During that time, Daeho and his warriors explored more of the ship. They found libraries full of books, classrooms where children learned about science and art, workshops where humans created beautiful objects for no practical purpose. They found humans who were blind, who could not see, but who still contributed to the community by teaching or making music. They found humans who were disabled, who could not walk, but who designed new technologies from their beds. Most disturbing of all, they found humans who were very old, who could no longer work or fight, but who were cared for by the entire community. These elders told stories to the children, shared their knowledge with the younger adults, and were treated with respect and love. By Kethver standards, all of these humans should have been consumed long ago. They were weak, unable to contribute to survival, a drain on resources. But the other humans protected them, cared for them, valued them. When the repairs were complete, Daeho gathered his warriors back in the common area. The humans had prepared food for them, though they were not sure what the aliens could eat. The gesture was meaningless from a practical standpoint, but it showed the human desire to be welcoming even to potential enemies. "We should return to our ship," Minho said. "We have learned enough." But Daeho was not ready to leave. He looked around at the humans who had gathered to watch them. They were still curious, still asking questions, still showing no hostility despite the obvious threat. Little Youngji approached him again. "Are you leaving now?" she asked. "Soon," Daeho replied. "I hope we can be friends," she said.
Oh.
"I would like to learn more about your people." Daeho looked down at the small human child. She wanted to be friends with creatures who had come to kill her. She wanted to learn about a species that had destroyed thousands of others. For the first time in his 800 years of life, Commander, Daeho found himself unable to complete a mission. He could not kill these humans. Something about them had changed him in ways he did not understand. and that change frightened him more than any enemy he had ever faced. News of Commander Deho's hesitation spread through the Kethver Empire like a deadly infection. The hunting fleet had been silent for 3 days. No reports of victory. No consumption of the human world. No expansion of territory. This had never happened before in 3,000 years of conquest. Fleet Admiral Taeyong received the reports in his massive command ship. He was the largest Kethver alive, standing 12 feet tall with scales as black as space itself. His claws had carved through the hulls of 1,000 enemy ships. His teeth had tasted the blood of 10,000 different species. He was evolution. Perfected, the ultimate predator. "Explain this to me again," he said to his intelligence officer. Communications specialist Yemen stood before the admiral, his own massive frame dwarfed by his superior. "Commander Deho boarded the human vessel. He has been there for 3 days. He has not reported back. He has not destroyed the ship. He has not given any orders to continue the attack." 3 days, Taeyong repeated slowly. 3 days studying creatures that should have been dead in 3 minutes. Yes, Admiral Taeyong turned to look out at the stars. Behind him stood his most trusted warriors. Sergeant Seung-Wan had killed more beings than any soldier in the Empire. Captain Min-seok had led the conquest of 17 different worlds. Commander Hyun-woo had never lost a battle in 400 years of warfare. "What do we know about these humans?" Taeyong asked. "They are weak," Seung-Wan replied immediately. "Small bodies, no natural weapons, primitive technology. They should pose no threat to any Kethver warrior." Then why has an entire hunting fleet been paralyzed by them? No one had an answer to that question. "Prepare my personal fleet, Taeyong. Ordered, we will go to this human system and resolve whatever madness has infected Deho's mind." The Admiral's fleet was the largest mobile force in the Kethver Empire. 200 bioships of massive size, carrying millions of creatures bred for war. When they moved through space, entire star systems trembled. When they arrived at a world, that world ceased to exist within hours. But as they traveled toward the human system, strange reports began reaching them. Other Kethver fleets in nearby sectors were asking questions. What was special about these humans? Why had the conquest stopped? Some younger commanders were even requesting permission to observe the humans before attacking them. "Madness," Taeyong muttered. "This human disease is spreading to our other forces." When they arrived at the human system, Taeyong saw something that shocked him. Deho's hunting fleet was still there, surrounding the human colony ship. They were not attacking. They were not consuming. They were just watching. "Open communication with Commander Deho," Taeyong ordered. Deho's image appeared on the main screen. He looked the same as always, but something in his eyes was different. There was a confusion there that Taeyong had never seen in a Kethver warrior. "Admiral Deho said, you arrived quickly. I came to understand why you have not completed your mission," Taeyong replied. "Why are these humans still alive?" Deho was quiet for a moment. "They are not what we expected." "Explain." "They do not behave like prey species. They care for. They're weak. They create beauty. They ask questions instead of begging for mercy. They treat us with respect even though we came to kill them." "So kill them," Taeyong said simply. "I cannot." Those words hung in the air like a death sentence. A Kethver commander admitting he could not complete a simple extermination was unthinkable. "You will return to your ship immediately, Taeyong." "Ordered. I will handle these humans myself." "Admiral, you should speak with them first. You should see how they live." "I do not need to speak with my food before I eat it." Taeyong cut the communication and turned to his officers. "Prepare the assault creatures. We will show these humans what real predators look like." But Sergeant Seung-Wan raised a concern. "Admiral, should we not investigate what affected Commander Deho? If there is some kind of human weapon that can influence Kethver minds, ... "There is no such weapon," Taeyong said. "Deho has simply been away from proper warfare for too long. He has grown soft." The assault began within hours. Taeyong's bioships released millions of smaller creatures toward the human colony ship. Wave after wave of predators designed to tear through metal and flesh, to consume everything in their path. But something unexpected happened. The humans did not panic. They did not run. Instead, they began broadcasting on all frequencies. "Unknown vessels," came Captain Summon's voice. "We detect your approach. We do not wish to fight. We would like to understand why you want to destroy us. Perhaps we can find a solution that benefits everyone." "They want to negotiate," Captain Minseok said with amusement. "Let them talk while they die," Taeyong replied. But then Dr. Kungso's voice joined the broadcast. "We have been studying your bioships for several days. The integration of living systems with space travel is remarkable. We would love to learn how you achieved such perfect symbiosis between organism and technology." The assault creatures slowed in their approach. Even these simple predators were confused by the humans' reaction. Usually their victims screamed and fired weapons. These creatures were asking scientific questions. "Your creatures seem to be having trouble with our defensive systems." Engineer Hedgen's voice came over the communication. "Not because our defenses are strong, but because your creatures keep stopping to examine our technology instead of attacking it." Taeyong looked at his tactical display. It was true. The assault creatures were clustering around the human ship, but they were not attacking. They seemed to be studying it. "What is wrong with them?" he demanded. "Admiral," said communications specialist Yemen, "we are receiving multiple requests from the assault creatures. They want to know why the humans are not fighting back. They are confused by the humans' behavior." "They are predators," Taeyong said. "They do not get confused. They attack and consume." But the evidence was right in front of him. His perfect killing machines were hesitating, just like Daeho's warriors had hesitated. Then little Yoonji's voice came over the communication system. "Hello, new friends. Commander Daeho told me about you. You were even bigger than his ship." "Are you the leader of the space dragons?" "Space dragons?" Soonjuan asked. "The human child thinks our ships look like dragons," Minseok explained. "Dragons are mythical creatures from human stories," Dr. Kung-Soo added helpfully. "They're usually depicted as powerful and intelligent. It is actually quite a compliment." A human child was calling his ships of war dragons and treating it as a compliment. She was not afraid of them. She thought they were beautiful. "I drew pictures of your ships too," Yenji continued. "Would you like to see them? I use lots of colors to show how pretty they are." "She thinks our ships are pretty," Songwon said quietly. "Silence," Taeyong ordered, but his voice lacked conviction. Over the next several hours, more strange things happened. The humans established a communication link that allowed the Kethfer to observe their daily activities. They saw humans teaching children, creating art, caring for the sick and elderly. They saw humans working together to solve problems, sharing resources, helping each other. Most disturbing of all, they saw humans discussing the Kethfer themselves, not with fear or hatred, but with genuine curiosity and admiration for their achievements. "Look at how they have integrated living systems with mechanical components," Dr. Kung-Soo was saying to a group of students. "Different approach to space travel. Instead of fighting against biology, they have embraced it." "Could we learn to do that?" asked one of the students. "Perhaps," Dr. Kung-Soo replied. "But first we would need to understand their methods. And that would require cooperation rather than conflict." Admiral Taeyong found himself listening to these discussions despite himself. No species had ever expressed admiration for Kethfer technology before, but they had always been too busy dying to appreciate the complexity of their attackers. "Admiral," Captain Minseok said quietly, "the assault creatures are requesting new orders. They do not understand what they are supposed to attack? The humans, obviously. But the humans are not fighting back. They are not acting like enemies. The creatures are programmed to respond to aggression and fear. The humans are showing curiosity and friendliness." Taeyong looked at his tactical display again. His million-creature assault force was scattered around the human ship, but none of them were attacking. They were as confused as their commanders. Then Captain Soman requested direct communication with Admiral Taeyong. Against his better judgment, he accepted. "Admiral," she said with a respectful bow, "I understand you are here because of concerns about your Commander Daeho. We have enjoyed our conversations with him and his crew. Perhaps you would like to join us for a discussion as well." "I am here to destroy you," Taeyong said bluntly. "Yes, I understand that," Salman replied calmly. But perhaps you could tell us why. We are curious about what we have done to earn your attention. You exist, Tae-young said. That is enough. Gisting seems like a strange crime, Salman observed. We have not harmed you. We have not threatened you. I have not even known about you until a few days ago. You are weak, Tae-young explained. Weakness must be eliminated so that strength can grow. Is that how evolution works in your experience? Dr. Kingsu asked, joining the conversation. We have found that diversity tends to strengthen ecosystems rather than weaken them. Tae-young found himself drawn into a discussion he had never expected to have. The humans asked questions about Kethver philosophy, their understanding of evolution, their methods of conquest. They listened to his answers with genuine interest, asking follow-up questions that showed they were thinking carefully about his responses. It was the strangest military engagement in galactic history, and by the end of it, Admiral Tae-young found himself facing the same impossible choice that had paralyzed Commander Daeho. He could not bring himself to destroy these fascinating, frustrating, impossible creatures. The Kethver Empire began to tear itself apart from within. Word of the human encounter spread to every corner of their vast territory. Young warriors who had never questioned the old ways suddenly found themselves asking dangerous questions. Why did they need to destroy every species they met? What if there were other ways to grow strong? Commander Daeho had established a temporary base on a small moon near the human colony ship. Here, members of both species could meet safely. The interactions that took place there challenged everything that Kethver believed about themselves. In the universe, Dr. Yuna worked alongside Kethver bioengineers to develop new medical techniques. She showed them how human medicine focused on healing rather than simply replacing the weak with the strong. When Sergeant Juwon was injured in an accident, Dr. Yuna treated her wounds with the same care she would show any human patient. "Why do you heal me?" Juwon asked as the human doctor worked on her damaged arm. "I am your enemy." "You are injured," Dr. Yuna replied simply. "That is all that matters to me." Guan had been expecting pain, rough treatment, perhaps even deliberate harm. Instead, she received gentle care and genuine concern for her well-being. The experience left her deeply confused about everything she thought she knew about interacting with other species. Engineer. With Kethver bioengineers, they were amazed by human mechanical systems, while she was fascinated by their biological approaches to the same problems. "Your ships are alive," she said to Engineer Sung-jin, one of the younger Kethver technicians. "That means they can heal themselves, adapt to new situations, even grow stronger over time." "Yes," Sung-jin replied. "But your ships are more precise. They can be repaired quickly and modified easily. Our bioships take years to develop new capabilities." "What if we combine both approaches?" Hejin suggested. "Living systems for adaptability and self-repair, mechanical systems for precision and quick modification." The idea was revolutionary. Neither species had ever considered that cooperation might produce better results than conquest. Most important of all were the conversations between young Yoonji and the Kethver warriors. The human child had no fear of the massive predators. She treated them like interesting friends she wanted to learn about. "Do you have children?" she asked Lieutenant Minho one day. "Kethver do not have children the way humans do," Minho replied. "Our young are hatched in breeding pools. Only the strongest survive to adulthood." "That sounds lonely," Yoonji said. "Human children have families, parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles who love them and take care of them." "Love is weakness," Minho said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Is it?" Yoonji asked. "My parents love me, and it makes me feel brave and strong. When I know people care about me, I want to be the best person I can be." Minho found himself thinking about his own childhood in the breeding pools. Only the most aggressive young survived. There was no gentleness, no care, no encouragement to be anything other than a killer. He'd become strong, but he had never felt brave or happy. "What would you do if someone tried to hurt your family?" he asked. "I would protect them," Yunya said without hesitation. "Love does not make you weak. It gives you something worth fighting for." These conversations were happening throughout the Kethver fleet. Warriors who had spent centuries believing that emotion was weakness found themselves experiencing feelings they had no names for. curiosity, wonder, something that might even be called affection for these strange small creatures. But the change. It was not happening everywhere. It's back in the core systems of the Empire. Traditional Kethfer leaders were growing alarmed. Fleet Admiral Tae Young's reports described impossible things. Warriors refusing to attack, commanders questioning orders, ancient certainties crumbling in the face of human strangeness. Admiral Changmin, one of the most conservative leaders in the Empire, gathered a massive war fleet. If the humans were some kind of disease that infected Kethfer minds, then they had to be eliminated quickly before the infection spread further. This madness ends now, he declared to his assembled commanders. We will destroy every human in their system, and then we will cleanse our own forces of this weakness they have somehow introduced. Meanwhile, on the moon base, Dr. Kungsu was making a discovery that would change everything. While studying Kethfer biology, he found something unexpected in their genetic structure. Captain, he said to Soman, his voice filled with excitement, you need to see this. Salman joined him in the laboratory, along with Commander Daeho and several other Kethfer officers. I have been analyzing Kethfer DNA, Dr. Kungsu explained. What I found is remarkable. Your species was not always purely predatory. It's impossible, said Lieutenant Minho. We have always been hunters. No, Dr. Kungsu said, displaying his findings on a screen. Deep in your genetic code, I found remnants of other traits, curiosity, cooperation, even what appears to be the capacity for emotional bonding. Commander Daeho stared at the data. You were saying we once had the same traits as humans? Exactly the same, but similar. At some point in your evolutionary history, your species chose to suppress these traits in favor of pure aggression. But the genetic potential is still there. That would explain why some of our warriors are being affected by human behavior, Sergeant Juan said thoughtfully. The humans are awakening something that was always part of us. The implications were staggering. The Kethfer had not always been the galaxy's apex predators. They had once been capable of the same cooperation and curiosity that defined humanity. Somewhere in their past, they had chosen a different path. But why would we suppress those traits? Daeho asked. Survival pressure, Dr. Kungsu suggested. Perhaps your world was so dangerous that only the most aggressive individuals could survive long enough to reproduce. Over thousands of generations, the gentler traits were bred out of your population. Till now, Soman added. Contact with humans is proving that those traits can still be valuable for survival. Word of Dr. Kunsu's discovery spread through the fleet like wildfire. Young Kethfer warriors began to understand that their capacity for new feelings was not a weakness or a disease. It was a return to something their species had lost long ago, but Admiral Changmin's war fleet was approaching fast. 300 of the largest bioships ever grown, carrying enough firepower to sterilize entire solar systems. When they arrived, there would be no more time for talking or learning. The humans and their Kethfer allies would have to choose between the old way of pure aggression and a new way that none of them fully understood yet. Captain Soman called. A meeting of both human and Kethfer leaders. We have perhaps days before Admiral Changmin arrives, she said. We need to decide what we are going to do. We could run, suggested Engineer Hedgen. Take our ship and flee to another system. That would not solve the fundamental problem, Commander Daeho replied. The Empire would continue its expansion. Other species would die. We could fight, Lieutenant Minho said. Those of us who have changed could stand with the humans against the traditionalists. That would be civil war, Sergeant Jiwan pointed. Out Kethfer, killing other Kethfer. It goes against everything we have ever believed. Maybe that is exactly what we need, said a new voice, was Sung Jin, the young bioengineer. Maybe we need to stop believing in some of the old ways. What are you suggesting? Daeho asked. I am suggesting that we prove Dr. Kungso's theory, show Admiral Changmin and his forces that cooperation is stronger than conquest, not by running away or fighting, but by demonstrating a better way to live. Little Yunji raised her hand. I have an idea, she said. What if we throw a party? A party? Minho asked, confused. Yes, Yunji said excitedly. We invite Admiral Changmin and all his warriors to come and see how humans and Kethfer can be friends. We show them art and music and food and stories. We show them that working together makes everyone stronger. The adults looked at each other. It was the most naive suggestion imaginable. It was also completely impossible, and it just might work. A party, Commander Deho said slowly, to welcome the most dangerous Kethfer in the Empire. Why not? Captain Soman asked. Everything else we have tried has been impossible too. The next few days were a frenzy of preparation. Humans and Kethfer worked together to create something that had never existed before, a celebration of cooperation. Between species, we prepared food that both species could enjoy, created art that showed their two worlds working together, and planned demonstrations of the technologies they had developed through collaboration. Most importantly, they prepared stories. Stories of what the galaxy could become if species chose cooperation over conquest. When Admiral Changmin's fleet arrived, they found something completely unexpected. Instead of a battle formation or a plea for mercy, they received an invitation. To a party, come and see what we have learned together, Captain Soman broadcast to the incoming war fleet. Come and see what evolution really looks like. Okay. Admiral Changmin stared at his communication screen in disbelief. Prey species did not invite their predators to parties. Warriors did not celebrate with their enemies. But curiosity, that ancient Kethfer trait that Dr. Kungsu had found in their genes, began to stir in the minds of Changmin's warriors. Maybe, just maybe, they would accept the invitation. And if they did, the galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Changmin arrived with the fury of 3,000 years of Kethfer tradition. His war fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect attack. Formation bioships bristling with weapons, assault creatures ready to swarm across space. He had come to end the human infection once and for all, but what he found waiting for him defied all military logic. The moonbase had been transformed into something impossible. Lights of every color decorated the surface, creating patterns visible. From space, human and Kethfer ships floated together in peaceful formation. Music was being broadcast on all frequencies, strange harmonies that somehow blended human melodies with Kethfer biorhythms. What is this madness? Changmin demanded, Captain. Sumon's voice came over the communication system, calm and welcoming. Hello, Admiral Changmin. We have prepared a celebration in honor of your arrival. Both our species have learned much from each other, and we wanted to share our discoveries with you. I did not come here for celebrations, Changmin growled. I came to restore order to the Empire. We understand Commander Deho's voice joined the conversation, but perhaps you would be willing to see what we have accomplished before making any final decisions. Changmin looked around his bridge. At his assembled commanders, they were all veterans of countless battles, warriors who had never shown mercy to any enemy. But he could see confusion in their eyes. The scene before them was unlike anything in their experience. Admiral said his tactical officer, our assault creatures are requesting clarification. They do not detect any hostile intentions from the human and rebel forces. Of course, there are no hostile intentions, came the voice of little Yunya over the communication system. This is a party. Nobody fights at parties. They have fun and make friends. Several of Changmin's warriors looked at each other in bewilderment. A human child was lecturing them about appropriate behavior at social gatherings. I have prepared a special song for you, Yunya continued. It is about space dragons who learn to be friends instead of scary. Would you like to hear it? Spite himself, Admiral Changmin found himself curious about what a human child would sing about Kethfer warriors. Play your song, small creature. What followed was the strangest moment in galactic military history. 7-year-old human girl sang a simple song about mighty dragons who discovered that protecting others made them stronger than destroying them ever could. Her voice was small and clear, reaching across space to touch the minds of the galaxy's most feared predators. When the song ended, there was silence on Changmin's bridge. Several of his warriors were staring at their displays as if seeing them for the first time. That was beautiful, said Captain Sungwoo, one of Changmin's most trusted officers. It was noise, Changmin replied, but his voice lacked conviction. Admiral, came Dr. Kung-Su's voice. "We would like to show you some of our research findings. We have made discoveries about Kethfer genetics that we think you will find fascinating." Against every instinct he possessed, Changmin found himself. Accepting the invitation to board the moon base, he brought a full squad of his best warriors, expecting treachery at every moment. What he found instead was a celebration unlike anything in the known galaxy. Humans and Kethfer worked together. At food stations, preparing meals that both species could enjoy. Children played games with warriors whose claws could crush steel. Scientists from both races shared discoveries and theories in animated discussions. Dr. Yuna was treating injured Kethfer. Warriors with the same gentle care she showed human. Patience. Engineer Hejin and her Kethfer counterparts were demonstrating hybrid technologies that combined biological and mechanical systems in revolutionary ways. Most disturbing of all, Changmin saw Kethfer warriors who were laughing. Actually laughing, showing joy and amusement in ways that had been bred out of their species thousands of years ago. "How is this possible?" he asked Commander Deho. "Dr. Kung-Su can explain it better than I can," Deho replied, leading Changmin to the research station. Dr. Kung-Su showed the Admiral the genetic analysis that had changed everything. "Your species was not always purely predatory," he explained. "The capacity for cooperation, curiosity, and emotional bonding is still encoded in your DNA. Contact with humans simply awakened traits that were always part of your heritage." "You are saying we were once weak like humans?" "Not weak," Dr. Kung-Su corrected. "Different. Your ancestors chose the path of pure aggression because their environment demanded it. But that was one choice among many possible evolutionary strategies." Captain Soman joined the conversation. "We have discovered that cooperation can be just as effective as survival strategy as competition. When species work together, they can accomplish things that neither could achieve alone." "Show me," Changmin demanded. Over the next several hours, the humans and their Kethvar allies demonstrated the results of their collaboration. Hybrid biomechanical ships that were more efficient than either purely biological or purely mechanical vessels. Medical techniques that could heal injuries thought permanent. Agricultural methods that could feed entire populations without depleting resources. Most impressive of all, they showed him the social structures they had developed. Humans and Kethfer living and working together, each contributing their unique strengths while compensating for each other's weaknesses. But it was a simple act of kindness that finally broke through Changmin's resistance. Young Yunya approached the massive admiral, carrying a drawing she had made. It showed Kethfer and human ships flying together through space, surrounded by stars and planets and beautiful colors. "I made this for you," she said, offering the picture. "It shows how pretty the galaxy could be if everyone was friends." Changmin looked down at the small human child. She was showing no fear of him, despite the fact that he had come to destroy her entire species. She was offering him a gift, a vision of beauty and cooperation. "Why do you give this to me?" he asked. "Because you are sad," Yunya replied. "Your eyes look sad, like you have forgotten how to be happy. Maybe this picture will help you remember." For the first time in 500 years of life, Admiral Changmin felt something crack inside his chest. It was not pain, though. It felt like breaking. It was not weakness, though it made him want to kneel down beside this small creature. It was the return of something his species had lost so long ago, that they had forgotten it ever existed. "Admiral," said Captain Sunwoo urgently, "we are receiving reports from the fleet. Several ships are requesting permission to join the celebration." Changmin looked up from Yunja's drawing to see his tactical display. His perfectly disciplined war fleet was beginning to break formation. Individual ships were moving closer to the moon base, their crews apparently overcome by curiosity about what they were witnessing. "Order them back into formation," he commanded. "I have tried, Admiral. They are not responding to orders. They say they want to see the party for themselves." It was mutiny. It was the complete breakdown of military discipline. It was everything. Changmin had feared would happen if the human infection spread, but as he watched his warriors beginning to interact with humans and reformed Kethver. They were not becoming weaker. They were becoming something new. Commander Deho approached him. Admiral, I know this challenges everything we have believed, but look around you. See how strong we become when we choose cooperation over destruction. Is not strength, Chongman said, but he was no longer sure he believed it. Is it not? Deho asked. We have learned more in the past few days than we learned in centuries of conquest. We've developed technologies we never imagined possible. We have discovered capabilities in ourselves that we never knew existed. Little Yunya tugged on Chungman's arm. Would you like to meet my friends? She asked. I can introduce you to everyone. They're all very nice. Changman looked down at the child, then around at the celebration surrounding him. Humans and Kethver. Working together, learning from each other, creating things that neither species could have achieved alone. It was everything his military training told him was impossible. It was also the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Yes, he said quietly. I would like to meet your friends. The change did not happen instantly. There were still traditionalist Kethver who refused to accept the new paradigm. There were conflicts and arguments and difficult decisions. Members of the Empire chose to leave rather than abandon the old ways, but the transformation had begun. It could not be stopped. Within a year, the first interspecies colonies were established. Humans and Kethver worked together to terraform worlds, to develop new technologies, to explore distant star systems. The galaxy's fiercest predators became its greatest protectors, using their strength to defend weaker species rather than destroying them. Dr. Kungsu and Commander Deho established the first cooperative research institute, where scientists from multiple species worked together to solve the great challenges facing galactic civilization. Engineer Hedgen led teams that developed hybrid technologies, combining the best aspects of biological and mechanical systems. Young Yunya grew up in a galaxy transformed. She became a teacher, as she had always wanted, but her classroom included students from dozens of different species. She taught them about cooperation and friendship, about the beauty that could emerge. When different forms of life chose to work together rather than fight, Captain Soman became the first human admiral in the newly formed Galactic Protectorate, leading fleets composed of ships from many different worlds. Her mission was not conquest but exploration, not destruction but discovery. And Admiral Changman, the fierce traditionalist who had come to destroy the human infection, became one of its greatest champions. He established the Warrior Guardian Corps, elite Kethvar units dedicated to protecting developing civilizations from those who would exploit or harm them. The galaxy had not become peaceful. There were still conflicts, still challenges, still dangerous predators who chose the old ways. But now there was also something that had never existed before, an alliance of species working together for mutual benefit and protection. The Kethver had learned that true. Evolution was not about becoming the strongest predator. It was about becoming the best version of what you could be. And sometimes that meant growing beyond what you were, even if it required leaving behind everything you thought you knew about survival and finding humanity. The galaxy's fiercest species had discovered something more valuable than any conquest. They had discovered hope, and in a universe full of wonders yet to be explored, hope was the most powerful force of all. The stars were still vast and dangerous, and full of unknown challenges. But now, for the first time in galactic history, those who ventured into the darkness would not journey alone. They would journey together, and together they could face anything the universe might offer.